Hey, welcome to TWC Projects. Today we're doing our 50-hour maintenance on the tractor, a detailed walkthrough. I'm going to show you probably more than you want to know, but if it's coming up for you or you're just interested in what it requires, I've done a bunch of homework for this, honestly. I thought I knew what I needed to do, and then I really did some homework. So I'll show you a little bit more about that, including all the parts and tools you need, and maybe even a couple of mistakes that I made, or a mistake that I made that hopefully you can avoid by watching this video. So stick with me and we're going to get to it in just a minute. All right, so I'm going to try to make this video more of showing than telling, but I do need to do a little bit of telling to start with, and that is around a couple of things. And some of this may be intuitive, some may not be, so bear with me if you've already can figure this out. Now, if you've changed oil on the car before, you want to run it for a little while to warm it up, 5 to 10 minutes tops, and depending on how cold it is outside. And so we'll go through that process, including the fact that you drain your oil, you take out your filter, you put a little fresh oil on your new filter, put your new filter back in, make sure your drain plug is back in tight, and then you'll add your oil, run the engine for a minute, and check the dipstick. So most people kind of know that stuff, straightforward for the oil, and we're going to do that. But the hydraulic's a little bit different, not a lot different, but instead of running the engine, you don't necessarily need to do that. But what you do need to do is make sure that all of your hydraulic components are fully compressed. So they're all receded back in as far as they'll go. That way you're pushing all the hydraulic fluid back into the reservoir, instead of having a bunch of dirty hydraulic fluid still sitting in fully extended hydraulic components. So that includes even your 3-point hitch being down as well. Drop that all the way down to the ground. And if you've got a bucket loader, obviously keep that down. So I wanted to cover that real quick. Some other things to keep in mind is, well, let's just go through all the different things you need and before we get into it. So the first and most important thing you need is your manual, and there's a section in the back, and I'll try to have all this stuff available to you. If I don't have it right away, I'll have it on my new website soon, and more to come on that. But so there's a section in here that tells you all the things, 50-hour, 300-hour, etc. So we're going to go through and talk about what we need to do today and what we don't need to do, and then we're going to actually do it. So I'll show you how to go through and do that. But let's start by talking about some of the things we're going to need. Well, I take it back. Let's go through and just talk about the main things we're doing. We're changing the oil in the oil filter. We're changing the transmission fluid and fluid filter. That's, in this case, since this is a hydrostatic tractor, meaning instead of having a normal traditional transmission, it has a hydraulic-driven transmission. So we have a lot more hydraulic fluid, or transmission fluid as they refer to it in the book. We also are going to change the fluid in our front axle. And those are the only things we really have to change. We have multiple filters that we'll look at in just a second. And then we have our fluids. And also we're going to go through and check some things which include, there's a whole listing. And I'll try to put it up on the screen as well when I edit this video. But kind of the main things we're going to go through and check is, all our grease fittings, make sure those, well, we're going to just grease anything that needs to be greased, quite frankly. But we'll check our coolant level, see how that looks. We don't need to change the coolant today. We're going to clean the air filter out. Don't need to replace that. And that's one of the mistakes I made when I ordered the kit, a 50-hour kit. I'll tell you what, it came with, well, it's in the box, but it came with a full air filter and a fuel filter, which you don't need for a 50-hour. So, but I have it now. Rookie mistake, spent a little extra money, but at least I have it. Everything keeps going up, so you know what? I'll have it when I need it. Some of the other things we'll do is, look through and check on some of the, there's like the battery cables, look at general hoses just to make sure everything looks okay. We'll pull on the alternator belt, see how if that's properly tightened. So we'll go through a bunch of these things, and like I said, I'll try to list them off. I'll just kind of go from the book and list them off on the screen as we go through them, and we'll do that. So based on that, one of the things too, typically a lot of the things that I buy around here, you know, I'm obviously in America, and we still have some of that are in the old English system, so they're in gallons or quarts. So the first thing I did is I went through my book, and I got on Google, and I went ahead and let's see where I have it. I went through and converted them all to quarts or gallons, and like I said, I can have that available to you once I get the website up, and have a lot more detail, so it's easier and the book is really good, though, I'll have to say that. Branson did a good job with this book. You know, as you can see, it kind of shows you where a lot of the things are. Now, unfortunately, there are a few things that aren't exactly the way they say, so we're going to talk about that today too. And I reached out to the dealer to ask him a couple questions too. I couldn't find torquing specs for the bolts on the wheels or the oil, so we're going to, you know, use best judgment on that kind of thing, make sure they're not loose, and but not over tighten them. And what else did I not find? Oh, it referenced 9 different grease fittings. I can only find 3, and it tells where they are: front and rear axle. It talks about on the lift arms, which I can't find them on those. It talks about them on the brake and clutch pedals, and I can't find those. So we'll get into that more in just a minute, but I wanted to kind of give you a heads up on that, and we'll talk about some of the other things that we need to put in place to get going here. All right, so let's talk about detail of what you need, exact quantities. So in terms of engine oil, you're going to need 4.3 liters, which is basically 4.5 quarts. So I have a 1 gallon. I think that's I've got another quart in the garage I didn't bring out. But what surprised me the most was the transmission oil, or the hydraulic fluid that you need for the hydrostatic tractor. It is 37 liters, which is 9.8 gallons. So I bought 2 5-gallon jugs. That gives me almost 10, or that gives me 10 gallons. I need almost 10, which is crazy, it seems like. So, and as far as the front axle, that's going to need 6.76 quarts. So I bought just a 2-gallon jug and that's SAE 90. The oil is 15W40 engine oil, and then they have some different specs or recommendation, but this is more of a universal premium tractor fluid, so that's what I went with, because I couldn't find the what they suggest, which includes like a Texaco or Chevron products. So I just went to Tractor Supply, was where I went to get that stuff. So you'll also need, which is a little bit harder to find, you can't just get this at Tractor Supply, but is your large main hydraulic fluid filter, and you know, that's for running your bucket loader and so forth. And then you need your another filter for your hydrostatic. There are 2 separate pumps on this, so I think that's why they had 2 separate filters. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. And of course, you need your air filter. Some other things we're going to do, in addition to changing the fluids, is check our tire pressure. We need a wrench to get to our front axle fluid, which is that SAE 90. And of course, some gloves are always good to have. Rags are good to have. Grease gun. Grease, and if you saw my last video where I went into detail, I won't show you as much detail on like greasing the bucket loader, because I already did that in a previous video. But the one mistake I made is I didn't pay attention to the type of grease. I mean, I got multi-purpose grease, which was good, synthetic, but it was black, and it's a lot messier and uglier. So this time I made sure I got the amber lithium grease. So hopefully that'll work better. And of course, you need some funnels. And I ended up buying a new drain bucket because this thing at 10 gallons, that's about 20 quarts. And so I needed a much bigger drain pan for my transmission fluid, my hydraulic fluid, to put that in. And of course, make sure you're hydrated, keep your water with you. So I think that covers everything that you need in terms of parts and tools. So we'll get started. I'll walk you through, show you where everything, all of the fill locations are and the dipsticks are to check everything. So we'll do that next. All right, so we're going to start by lifting the hood up, which there's a little lever right here that I'm going to pull out on that, and then just lift up on the front of the hood. But before I do that, I've got to move this brush cage out of the way. If you don't have a loader, you probably won't have one of these on, and you won't have to do it. But boy, this is a beast to pull it out. It's definitely good and tight. So get that out of the way enough. And then we'll pull the little lever down here. Should be able to. Where's it? There it is. All right. And then that's got a little gas shock, a pair of gas shocks on it to lift up. So we don't necessarily need to get in here too much other than to do our inspection stuff that we will, in fact, let's just start with that. How about that? We'll start with the kind of general inspection in terms of the battery and cables and make sure things kind of look okay. In the book, it talks about checking the fluid level, but this is a sealed battery, so it doesn't have the water in it, a water fill location. We also have here our air filter. There's a clip. Let's see if you can see that better. There's a clip on the top and on the bottom. You kind of have to just feel it because you can't really see it back there, but it's down there. And then we're just going to pull that off. And I might take the rag and kind of clean that out a little bit. And then this, you just kind of work it a little bit, and it'll come out. It actually looks pretty good, but what we're going to do is we're going to take the air hose and we're going to blow from the inside out, and we're going to try to clean off as much as we can. Don't use water on these or the grill. Always use it in an air hose because water will just pack it in more and harden it. So I'm going to leave that there for the moment so we can keep going around. The next thing I want to do is check my coolant levels, and what I can see right now is that I am down low. It should be between these two lines right here. There's a line there and a line there. So there's your max fill when it's hot, and then your minimum. So I've got to add some coolant. So we'll do that as one of the things we do. Here's where my fan belt is over here, or my, not fan belt, but my alternator belt. So I'm just pushing and pulling on that a little bit to see if it's good and taut, and it is. So I'm not going to mess with that. So, what else? And obviously, if you've been running a little bit, be careful because it'll be hot with your exhaust pipe up there. Let's see, what else? Grease fittings. So the only grease fittings I could find are here, and there's one on the front axle. So these are the tie rod grease fittings. 1, 2, and there's another one over here, 3. I found those 3. I couldn't find the others. So I'm going to wait to hear back from the dealer. I don't know if maybe on the hydrostatic models they don't have a rear axle grease fitting and a lift arm grease fitting. I assumed the lift arm, it referred to that in the book, meant this for my 3-point, but I can't find grease fittings anywhere in here, and I can't find any where else. So it said there were 9. I could find 3. So that's one I'll have to get back to you on as soon as I hear back from the dealer why the book says 9 and I can only find 3. Now maybe I need to crawl underneath a little bit more, but we'll see. So the next thing, of course, we'll do is check our air pressure. We'll check the lugs, see how they, make sure nothing is loose there. We should also be checking if you've got a loader, check all those and make sure those are good. We don't want anything coming loose on that, obviously. So we'll go around and check those. And then what's left? Then, of course, as a normal, routine thing, almost every time you get ready to use the tractor, you always take a quick glance down here. If this ring is floating, that means you've got water in your fuel, and you'll need to put a little cup or something under here to catch it, and you'll, I believe it'll separate a bit. So you'll run it until the ring drops back down, and then you'll close it back up. So hopefully you're already doing that. Of course, you've got your oil dipstick down here, and you've got your, that's your engine oil dipstick. Back here we've got our hydraulic transmission fluid dipstick here. and our fill thing there that we'll take off to fill it. What else? Oh yeah, filters. So your engine, your oil filter, engine oil filters there. Your hydrostatic transmission fluid, or excuse me, your hydraulic fluid filter is here. And then there is another one, harder to see. Hopefully you can see it back here, but the big one is back in here, and that runs your loader hydraulics. Because I had a little trouble when I first did it, I thought I'd share with you just to make sure that it's helpful. And with the hood up, it's easy to see what's happening. But this pulls out. I wasn't sure originally. It looked like it moved forward and backward, and I was trying to do that. It wasn't doing anything. And even when I pulled on it before, I didn't realize I really had to pull on it quite a bit because the hood was kind of sticking a little bit. So I pulled this out this way. So I'm pulling it out this direction, and then lift it up on the hood at the same time, and it releases. So when I showed you just now, that wasn't my first try. The first time I tried it, I couldn't figure out how to get it open. I got a little frustrated, so I had to kind of work it a little bit, but I wanted to show you that. So you don't have to mess with that if you have any trouble. The other thing I didn't show you is the filler plugs, or the drain plugs. So when we get ready to do these, the front axle, we've got a drain plug at the bottom on each side. This is the right side, and over on the left side there's one as well. And like I said, you need to take plugs out of both sides to drain, because there's quite a bit of fluid will be sitting up in here, so you got to drain that all out to make sure you're completely replacing the fluid. And then of course you'll check it once you've put it in and let it settle. Let's find the other plugs. All right, so here's my oil pan drain plug. See how it's all yellow? Yellow here. Fluid plug, yeah. This big guy right here. And hopefully you can see, it's hard to see under here in the darkness, but that's got a yellow marker on it as well. So that's where we're going to drain out our transmission fluid. I think that's it. So I wanted to make sure I showed you those as well. The other thing I talked about, the 9 grease fittings, I wasn't referring to the loader. The loader's separate. So the loader has 16 fittings. There's one here, one here, one here, here, and here. So those, 8 on each side, 16 in all. The 9 were supposed to be, as I described before, front and rear axle mount. I could only find a front axle mount. I found the 2 tie rod ones, left and right, but I couldn't find the others. So let's keep going. All right, so let me catch you up a little bit on what we just did. Taking off the oil drain plug below with a 17 millimeter. And then I tried to use a traditional oil filter removal tool. Didn't work so well, so I went back to my old-fashioned one that you put on fits a socket driver and adjusts to whatever size you need, so it can handle a pretty big one. and then obviously counterclockwise to screw it off, counterclockwise to take out the oil plug. Of course, I drained all the oil. There's a few little drips still coming down, but I was too impatient, so then I put the plug back on, hand tighten, not too tight, even though I had to use a breaker bar to get it loose. It felt pretty tight, but I tightened it with a smaller ratchet and putting, you know, a reasonable amount of pressure on it. So I don't have torque specs for these. I'm sure there are some. I haven't been able to get them from my dealer. He's closed today, and I didn't realize that they weren't in the book. So anyway, I'll get those for you later. So then we took after we took the oil filter off, I dumped as much excess as I could into my oil pan, drain pan, and I got the new filter. Got a little fresh oil, treated the rubber seal real well with the fresh oil, made sure I wiped out I don't want any grit or sediment that might have been in there, so I wiped that out with the rag, the filter port, before I put the filter back on. And now we're gonna put in fresh oil and go from there. Another tip that I found that I really was just an accident. I usually just bought assorted rags, or I'd tear up old t-shirts or whatever and have, cotton rags. And I didn't realize how, like, you couldn't use it very much at all and you had to throw it away right away. And I bought these last time because they were just so inexpensive, these microfiber. They're really meant more for, I guess, for cleaning surfaces and whatever, but you get 2 pounds of them, and you get a ton of rags in here. And what I find is that they not only absorb the oil really quickly, like you can use them for a long time. They absorb a lot, and they clear it away right away. Even things that are wet, or antifreeze or whatever that I wipe out, I'm always surprised at how well it traps it. And eventually I'll throw it away, but I get a lot of use out of these, way more than regular rags. I guess it sounds kind of silly maybe, but for things like oil and antifreeze or whatever, that usually just, you can't, this works great. So I just wanted to show you those. I think I just got those at like Home Depot. I'm sure there are a lot of different brands, but this microfiber style, I think these are for painters, use these mainly, and they're really good for helping to clean up paint. They're very absorbent. So anyway, I recommend you grab some of those if you don't have them, and just try them out. They work so well. I'm really surprised. Other thing, let's see, cardboard. Yes, I had it out to lay everything out on, but I also use it so that I can slide around on the rocks because they're a little uncomfortable. I have a rock driveway, crushed stone driveway. Plus it was kind of wet this morning, so that is really handy. And then there are some more tools that I didn't talk about that I did end up needing. One is having a decent measuring cup to when you get down to the bottom, trying to get a little bit more precise, and having a long neck funnel to get into places that are kind of a little hidden in there, so that you're not, holding the big oil jug out, tipping all over the place, trying not to spill it on your engine or your car or your tractor. What other tools? And then of course we talked about 17 millimeter for the oil. 28 millimeter for the hydraulic transmission fluid, which I'm going to do next. I don't have a 28 millimeter, so I do have a giant crescent wrench, and I'm going to use that, which is the old go-to when you need it. But I think that's it for now. Thought I'd throw in some more tips. Hopefully these things are helpful. Well, it helps if you do your math right. 20 quarts is only 8 gallons, and I panicked while I was draining this thing. Luckily I had my measuring cup and this other oil pan, so I was able to scoop a couple gallons into that. And you know, I had a hard time getting that drain plug in. For some reason, the thread is just really tricky on that, but eventually I got it in there and was able to fully drain. So now we're going to pull off the filters and put the new filters on and refill our hydraulic fluid, that almost 10 gallons. That math I'm pretty sure I did right, 9.8. So let's get back to it. Got some kind of a weird problem here. These filters are exactly the same. TA000431553B, TA000431553B, HYD oil filter, Branson tractors. But look at the threads. I've only got 4 threads here and I've got almost 6 here. These threads are not the same. And I can't get that on. Every time I start to thread it, it binds. I'm not sure if I should force it with a wrench, cross thread it. I don't know what to do with it. That's not good. All right, so it is a week later. Last weekend it was 70 degrees and I was in a t-shirt. Today's in the 30s, getting up to the 40s hopefully. And I planned on having this video out to you last week, but I couldn't finish the tractor because I had drained all of the transmission hydraulic fluid, and the filter that I had did not fit, even though it was exactly the right thing, supposedly. So I reached out to the dealer where I bought it, or to the online place where I bought it, and explained the situation, sent them some pictures, and they immediately, they were very responsive. Like within an hour they get back to me and said, hey, we went through our whole inventory, we found 5 ones that all had the wrong thread like yours, and we had 3 good ones, and so we'll send you a good one right away. So they did. I got that, and really strange. And of course, so then I reached back out to my dealer and let them know, hey, you might want to check your inventory, make sure you didn't get some of those bad filters as well. But this one looks much better, and so we're gonna go ahead and put a little oil on the bead and get it installed. I'll fast forward through that. And then we'll start filling up with fluid and continue on with the process that we started last weekend. So that way I can get this video out to you hopefully today, if not tomorrow. I've got a lot of it edited already. I just need to do these last pieces that we didn't get to last weekend. All right, let's get going. All right, I just checked the dipstick as you saw, and it looks like it's full, but I know it's not. It hasn't gone through the filters, hasn't run back into any of the lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and start it up and run it for just a minute, and maybe get the loader up and down for a second, just to pump some of it into the lines, and then we'll keep adding some more. I just wanna make sure I get it circulated into the system. since I'm not really on a true level here too, I probably ought to pull it into the garage where the floor is actually level and check both that and the oil again to make sure we're in good shape, because we're off a bit out here. This ground slopes a little bit. It was just a outdoor level place where I could film and have plenty of place to walk around, so I did it here, but we still need to do a few other things first. All right, so next we're going to check the all the lugs on the wheels, and then we're going to check the tire pressure as well. And I did find the torquing specs here on right with the same place as the tire pressure. So tire pressure for the front wheels with a loader, 42.6 pounds basically, and then for the rear is going to be 28.5. And then for the torque specs, basically converting Newton meters to foot pounds, 123 to 152, somewhere in that range. So we're going to go around and check all those as well. Won't really show all the wheels, I'll just do this one, and then you get the idea. Same thing for all four. So. All right, and this is a 22 millimeter socket on here, so just so you know that. So preferably when you check the tires, I wasn't really paying attention, I forgot about it, but you want the stem on top if you can get it that way if they're loaded. These have liquid in them, so some of the liquid came out into my gauge, which is also why your stems, you definitely don't want rubber stems if you're running liquid in these, because it tends to erode those quickly. But these are the brass ones, so they did a good job with this tractor. So that looks good. Actually, it probably needs a little bit of air in that, but I'll wait until I can turn it upright, get the stem up on the top for the rear tires. At least front tires don't matter; they're not loaded. So let's do a rundown now of what we've looked at and what we haven't, and figure out what's left. So let's see. We changed the engine oil filter, transmission filter. And now we've got to do the front axle. We haven't done that. So it says R for replace. The little key is over here. It tells you R replace, C check, CL clean, and A is adjust. So we'll do the front axle in a moment. Let's see what else we have to do here. And this is the 50-hour marker. So air cleaner, we cleaned that. Fan and radiator, we cleaned that. We need to check the fuel pipe connection, so we'll take a look at that in a second. The steering wheel hose, we'll take a look at that in a second. Electrical cables, we looked at a lot of them. We haven't looked at all of them, but everything's looking good. Greasing, we need to do that still. And let's see, tightening bolts and nuts, we're doing that right now. Cooling fan belt, we did that already, checked that. Engine bleed pipe, I'll show you where that is. I had to look that up because I didn't know where that is, but it basically goes into the intake manifold. There's a pipe up there that we want to look at. There's a kind of a rubber hose. And generator motor, we looked at that, and the hydraulic system, we're doing that right now. So we've been I've checked it over while I've been filling it. So we're in good shape on all that stuff. And so let's do the last few things that we need to do. All right, so if we get up under here, we'll get a look. We've got actually several hoses here. It's not a bad idea to check any of them for cracks or anything. Of course, this is so new at 50 hours, really a big deal. But the hose, this hose right here is what they call the bleeder hose. So, I mean, it's brand new. It feels good. Everything's tight, clean. It connects right here at your intake manifold and goes up to your valve cover. So I guess it just helps with the breathing and keeping air moving through there properly. And then of course various cables. I mean, the nice thing about this tractor is very few electronics or electrical. It's mainly the starter and the glow plugs, and but you can see alternator. You know, this is all brand new. We've got wires up here. Those look good. I don't see any leaking or any cracks. Everything looks good in terms of here's my starter motor here too, electrical coming in and out of there. So very minimal electrical, which all looks fine. All right, so here's one of the lines coming in for the steering here, coming right into the rack and pinion area down here. So that's another one that we would look at as well. And I think that's what it was referring to. Sometimes I guess these can be damaged by debris, or, you know, if you've been in deep stuff that might have put some wear and tear on these, but they're looking really good right now still, so no problem. All right, so while that thing is slowly draining, SA90 is super thick, and it's cold out here, so it's gonna take a while, but it's still running. It's still draining as it needs to. So while it's doing that still though, I'm gonna go ahead and grease up the tie rods up front here, and the front and the rear of the front axle connection. And I was not able to find any other grease fittings other than, of course, the loader. And but what I want to let you know is these things are a little goofy to use if you haven't used them before. Grease guns, of course, there's a lot better ones, but this is a good entry point. And I'll put a link to the video before where I actually went through and did all the grease fittings on the loader. I'm not going to do that today just because it's taken so long. This video is so long as it is. But I wanted to hit the fittings that I didn't do last time, so I'll record that right now. And then, like I said, I'll give you the link so you can go back and watch and see how I loaded up the gun, and then how I did all these fittings. And so just want to let you know, I won't include that in this video, but there are. I think I walked around already at the beginning of this and showed you where all the fittings are. So hopefully that's good enough. All right, let's get back to this. So I wanted to show you something here. Notice how the grease is coming back out. I think I have a bad stem here. There should be a little spring-loaded ball bearing or whatever in there that keeps the pressure in, and but you can see it's still coming out of that hole after I cleaned it off. And then this has all come out since I cleaned it off. So I don't know if the battery had died on the camera by then, but I wanted to show you that because I think that means I need to go out and get a new stem for this. And of course, I'll just wrench that off and put on a new one. But I think that one's bad because if it's pushing the grease back out, I don't know if there's enough in here or not. It certainly wouldn't stay in there if it keeps, you know, the pressure of it would keep pushing it out. So. All right, so definitely worth a check. As I went around, I still need to try these bigger ones here in a second, but all of them seemed fine until I got right here by the hydraulic pedals, and all four of them were a little bit loose. They just hadn't, I don't know if they'd worked their way out. So definitely worth checking. They all have lock washers on them, but they just weren't as tight as they should be. One of them I spun several times, so it probably would have eventually fallen out. Just need to be careful. So check all those, make sure those are good. All right, so I had an outer one loose here and an outer one on the other side loose. Definitely good to check these. All right, so this video is getting really long already, way long, but I did want to do a detailed job for you all so that you could see, you know, exactly where and what and how. You know, the fluid run for a little bit still too. It's just it's a little cold. It's warming up. I mean, it's probably 40 now, so 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But the fluid's been sitting there, of course, in the cold in the 30s overnight or 20s. So it's a little sluggish, but we'll let it keep running, and then I'll show you filling that up, and I think we're done at that point. We've done everything on our list, and I'll make sure I should give you the list all along. And I'll make the numbers, I'll try to make the numbers from the book, because there's like 1 through whatever. I'll make those match up to what I show on the screen as I do each thing. And I'll also try to make sure I tell you the difference, because in the book it didn't tell me the sizes of any of these wrenches or any of these sockets or anything. So I'll make sure that I go through and give that to you too, so you're prepared. But anyway, I'm gonna take a break for a second, and I'm gonna come back and finish this axle fluid, and then we'll wrap it up. All right. Whew, it took longer than I thought, a lot longer. It's a lot of work and a lot of time, but I like doing stuff myself, as you know, and I like figuring it out. So this has been great, and hopefully this will help you do it yourself too if you want to. And I expect that it'll save some money, certainly labor, because it's quite a bit of labor involved, and tractor mechanics are not inexpensive. So and they have a lot of overhead. So I get it, you know, that's just part of the business. But I like that I can work on this one myself for the most part, and if there's something I can't, I've got a good dealer to take it to help me if it's something I can't figure out. All right, so we finally finished up. I pulled the tractor into the garage so that I could get everything on a level, which I'm glad I did, because a lot of the fluid still needed adjusting. I knew they would, because we weren't on level ground outside, but everything's in great shape now. We've gone through in crazy detail, I guess, more than I certainly more than I thought it would need to do, but I figured I'd do a really good video. Hopefully you all appreciate this. And there was a lot of details that just weren't readily available. So hopefully I've got all those covered in this video, or I'll put out some other materials soon with all the different details of what we put in here and everything we did. So most of it's in the book, some of it isn't. And then I learned a few things. And that hydraulic filter having the wrong threads, never seen anything like that. Literally the same, everything was exactly the same model number, everything, but for some reason it had a different thread on it. So got that fixed, got it all back together, and we're in good shape now. So thanks so much for joining me. I know this is a long video, but hopefully, you know, you can always fast forward around through it a little bit as you need to figure out if you're doing this. And I hope you enjoyed it. So thank you for being with me this week. Thank you for watching and subscribing, for hitting the bell to get notified when new ones come out, and for giving a thumbs up if you like it. And keep creating things, fixing things, and enjoying God's creation all around you. Until next week, have an excellent one, and we'll see you again soon.